everybody? What is going on, the Catch fam? It is Steven here, about to break down the must-start quarterbacks for your football teams in Week 3. But before we do that, let's take a special segment to go over the man on my jersey, Trent Richardson. Every once in a while, you will see me wearing a jersey that is super outdated, such as Trent Richardson. And we'll just take a quick minute to reflect and see what is he doing nowadays. So Trent Richardson, old running back for the Cleveland Browns and Indianapolis Colts. Unfortunately, we traded a first-round draft pick for Trent Richardson. Is now playing south of the border, guys. He is now with the I don't want to butcher the pronunciation of that, but he's playing for the football league in Mexico. So wow, did this guy fall off? I mean, if you are a big college football fan, remembering this guy run through defenses in the SEC, and man, and it do the mighty fall hard, right? But let's get right into it, guys. Let's go and look at the quarterbacks. My first must-start quarterback of the week, guys. Mr. Aaron Rodgers himself. Wow, did we see a bounce back game against the Detroit Lions? He was in my must starts last week. Obviously had a terrible game week 1. Think it's a throwaway game. We got to see a really cool analysis of Peyton Manning and Eli do the broadcast for them, and just kind of see how Aaron Rodgers was developing throughout the game. It looks like Aaron's really been trying to wipe off some of the rust that may have happened over this offseason. And further than that, too, he was playing super frustrated week 1, even referencing stuff that was happening in the locker room and maybe some shit that was still pissing him off. And I just don't think he was really relaxed and playing at full strength, right? Week 2, he is going out there ready to kill it, and he played Detroit and absolutely waxed the floor with them for over 4 touchdowns and 250 passing yards. And what another thing that I saw in that game was you could tell A-Rod did not want to come off the field despite having a big lead at the end, and they continue to try to push the ball down the field, right? Because A-Rod understands that he's still not fully there yet. There's still some rust in this offense, so that tells me that this offense has a ton more to grow, right? And this San Francisco defense, well, I do love this 49ers team. Their defense hasn't looked great, right? I think the Eagles have been able to move the ball really well against them in week 2. And I think in week 1, obviously, they got slammed by the Detroit Lions defensively. So I think the Packers are going to have a great opportunity to put up points here. I think this is going to be a game where both offenses, the 49ers and the Packers, are able to score, and it's going to be a tight game too. So it could come down to the very end. And I looked at Aaron Rodgers to having another big week, look just like he did in week 2. Another guy on the list, man, Mr. Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited Cannon, Mr. Deep Ball himself, Russell Wilson. 23 points in week 2, 27 points in week 1. Always finds a way to cock it deep and throw it to either Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf. Just so happens that this season, Tyler Lockett seems to always be on the receiving end of it. But, it was unfortunate, right? We saw Pete Carroll come out and maybe challenge Russell Wilson a little bit, saying that he thought that Russell Wilson should have done a little bit more to help the team at the end of the game there, maybe make a little bit more happen. And I think that's exactly what Russell Wilson's going to do going up against the Vikings in week 3. This Vikings defense has looked like Swiss cheese, right? For all the credit that we want to give them for being better than last year, maybe they are better, right? But they still have been getting smoked. Arizona just put up an absolute lightning strike on them, throwing it for all over the yard, right? Kyler Murray made their defense look like a JV team. And then in week 1, even Joe Burrow, who had an atrocious week 2, was able to light up this defense too. So I definitely think Russell Wilson's going to be able to do kind of whatever he wants. And I think he's also going to be pissed off because they gave that game away to Tennessee. They should not have lost that game. There was no reason for them to lose that game. But it's going to be interesting, right? Because the Vikings are also hungry. 0-2, and it played great offensively in both weeks, right? So I think this is going to be another game that could go down to the wire, just like that Packers 49ers game. And I want pieces of each offense, right? I think that you're going to see Russell Wilson have an opportunity to really light up the scoreboard and get 2 to 4 touchdowns, just like he's done so far this season. Another quarterback that I'm going to be highlighting here that is in that game as well, Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has been magnificent. One of our co-league managers in John and I's league has him, and he drafted a bunch of really good skill guys, and waited on the quarterback and got a guy like Kirk Cousins. And this is exactly why you would have that draft strategy, because you get a guy like Kirk Cousins who is 10th ranked in the league, 25 points week 2, 22 in week 1. This offense is like always in a position where they have to throw the ball because they're in a shootout. It seems like every week. I don't care if they're playing against Cincinnati or Arizona. It's like to the end of the game, they are trying to win the game. So, and Kirk Cousins has been very good, guys. 0 picks, 5 touchdowns, like 550 yards passing. He's looked very efficient, and also has been able to push the ball down the field. We've seen Osborne come about, and he's obviously got Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. So he's got tons of playmakers around him. Dalvin Cook is obviously still there, but maybe a little bit more banged up. So maybe they rely on the pass game a little bit more too. Because, I mean, honestly, that Seattle defense didn't look great. I mean, we saw Ryan Tannehill kind of find at will his guys. I mean, Ryan Tannehill could have had an even better game last week, if Julio Jones touchdown counted, and if AJ Brown didn't drop every pass, right? So the Seahawks defense isn't anything too great, and I'm not too scared of that challenge that it's going to present to Kirk Cousins. Dak Prescott is another must start this week, guys. And it's tough, right? He was on my list last week, and he disappointed, right? 7 points coming off of that week 1 performance where he was looking lights out against Tampa Bay. I think let's not read into it too much, though, right? I think Dak Prescott is still that week 1 guy. I think he can do so much for your fantasy football teams. Let's not get scared off of him. I think this Chargers defense is just for real, man. They looked good week 1 against the Washington football team, and they looked really good against the pass game in week 2. They intercepted Dak Prescott, but it was more than that. They were able to cover these really elite receivers and make a lot of really talented players on this offense really look kind of mediocre at times. So, I mean, holding Dak Prescott to 230 yards is a little bit part of the game script too. I mean, you saw them rely on guys like Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott, and that's certainly always a chance. But going up against the Philadelphia Eagles, the Eagles have been dominant at stopping the run so far this season. Surprisingly, right? They shut down the Falcons' running attack, which is pretty gross in general, but they also shut down the 49ers running attack, which has been one of the better ones historically over the past couple of years. Kyle Shanahan always knows how to find a good running back, but Eagles shut them down, man. But where the Eagles have been vulnerable is in the passing game. A lot of open lanes in the zone coverage games and also the man coverage. Eagles just don't really have the guys right now outside of DJ Slay and that secondary to stop really talented receivers like the Cowboys have. So I do think Dak's going to have a good chance to have a big game. And on the opposite end of that, guys, we have to seriously start taking Jalen Hurts into serious consideration for a top 12 quarterback finish here. But bigger than that, too, he's got a chance to finish top 5 just like he is right now. Week 2 against the 49ers, it was a kind of a mucky game. Really, both offenses didn't look fantastic, but he also had a major touchdown get called back to Jalen Reagor that would have boosted his stats even more. I mean, he would have had closer to 30 points if that play counted. And honestly, I wish it did because I had a little bit of a bet on that play as well. But 60 yards rushing in week 1, 80 yards rushing in week 2. That is the type of consistency we want to see. And guess what, guys? He also carried it in with a touchdown too. And I mean, yeah, he's got sub 200 passing yards, but it doesn't even matter because he's able to get that rushing baseline week over week. And I think the Cowboys defense, while I do love Michael Parsons, I think, losing DeMarcus Lawrence is going to be huge for them. That's a massive edge rush that they're losing. I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a good opportunity to play really well. I'm predicting more of a shootout situation, right? And obviously, I thought that was going to be the case against the Chargers for the Cowboys last week, too. But I just think the Cowboys are going to be in a situation where the Cowboys and Eagles are doing a shootout. It's going to be a fun game. It's going to be a rivalry game, right? So I think it's going to be tight as well. It's going to be a close one. And I want pieces of it, especially with these mobile quarterbacks. quarterback that has been disappointing thus far this season, Justin Herbert, that's for sure. 25th worst quarterback in all of football this year. Pretty crazy, right? Because Chargers look good. Chargers are 2-0. They've been playing a weird type of football, right? They're not really having anybody stand out outside of a guy like a Mike Williams, right? Who I think is an absolute must start at wide receiver this week and for your fantasy football teams. But Justin Herbert has just been doing just enough to win the game, right? He's been game managing, but at the same time, throw for 300 yards, right? When is that positive touchdown regression going to come into play? I like it coming up here against Kansas City. I mean, Kansas City's defense can't stop a nosebleed, right? They just got torched by Lamar Jackson, who all the murmur is, man, this guy can't throw a football, right? But here comes Justin Herbert. This guy can throw a football. So, just logically, A plus B equals C. Like, he's got to be blowing up here, right? This is spelling everything for a great start. Again, 31 of 41. He's been very efficient. He's made some bad plays, though, right? He's made 2 interceptions last week and 1 interception the week before. So that definitely hurts. He also had a really fluky fumble week 1 against Washington, too. But I don't know, man. I think that they were also looking ahead a little bit to this Kansas City game because it has a ton of implications, right? This is going to be massive. If they can win this game, they can take a little bit of an early chokehold on the division. I think Justin Herbert's here to prove that he can do it. I'm looking for Justin Herbert to really come in here. Maybe he doesn't have like 300 plus yards, but I think he gets some passing touchdowns for sure. And that's going to jack up that total to probably 20 plus, guys. I'm really banking on that. And that's why he is one of my must start quarterbacks this week. This one is one of the craziest. I never thought I would be saying this as a together, right? Daniel Jones and must start. I just, at this point, you have to start him. Look at this. I want you all to pay attention to this. I wish I could magnify this and put this up on a blackboard. This guy's the number 4 quarterback in all of football right now. And you want to know why? 95 rushing yards and a touchdown, guys. He should have had 2 rushing touchdowns. And he had 27 yards and another touchdown in week 1. Like, who is Daniel Jones? I don't understand it. But all I do know is he's on your waiver wires and put him in your damn lineup. You just have to, close your eyes, put on a handkerchief or something. Don't watch the game because you're going to see this guy make some terrible plays. And you're going to see him just make some passes where you're like, this guy's actually a quarterback. And you're relying on Jason Garrett to coach. But guys, he's going up against the Atlanta Falcons. That defense is as good as trash. And the Daniel Jones can just run the ball, man. And he's just good enough to be where it's like every week, it's a part of his game, but he's also just bad enough to where the defenses aren't going to strategize really to stop the run game from Daniel Jones. So I think he's going to be a locked and loaded guy again. I think he's going to have a good opportunity here to play really well. And let's just also say he's only had 1 passing touchdown a game. Like, there's some positive touchdown regression there too. We've seen Kenny Golladay drop some passes. I think he's going to start coming into his own. Sterling Shepard, obviously a great must-start wide receiver of the week. He was on my video. If you have not seen that yet, please take a look at that must-start wide receivers for week 3. But Sterling Shepard's another guy who's been looking like one of the better receivers in the league too this year. So, I mean, it's really just, it's a matter of matchup and performance. And I think at this point, Daniel Jones has proven to be a must-start kind of guy. A guy who we all thought would be a must-start kind of player and really hasn't proven to be that so far, which is surprising, is Josh Allen. Josh Allen has looked very average, mediocre, and that has kind of placed him at ranking 19 so far in the year this year. But I think he's got a good situation here going up against Washington. Let's just take a rewind, really, week 1 and week 2. Washington gave up a decent amount of performance, a good fantasy performance to both Daniel Jones and, decent game against Justin Herbert, right? I don't know if this defense is the same defense we've seen of old. They're still very good. I'm not minimizing them. I think they're a very good defense still, but you can have good games against them as a quarterback. And last year, you just weren't able to do that, right? I don't care if you were Tom Brady or who you were, just didn't happen often. But we saw Justin Herbert throw over 300 yards, and then Daniel Jones run on them like he was Barry Sanders. So I think Josh Allen Obviously has one of the best arms in all of football. I think he can make some plays there to Stephon Diggs, but he can also run the ball like one of the best quarterbacks at rushing in all of football too. So definitely a ton of upside on both projectives, whether want to be running it or passing. But further than that too, I don't know if they're going to be able to hand the ball off as effective as they were against Miami and they were against Pittsburgh, right? Because the one thing Washington can do very good is stop the run game to the running back position. They're very good at it. They're just like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think the Bills are going to have to get a lot of their offense through Josh Allen. Ryan Tannehill, another guy who I thought really kind of came into his own in week 2. I don't think his fantasy points are really going to show that, though. Roughly under 15 points in both weeks, but 347 yards. They relied heavily on Derrick Henry in week 2, but I just see, this performance as it probably should have been 20 points, right? Julio Jones' touchdown got called back. A.J. Brown dropped some big, deep targets. And I also think this Indianapolis defense has been shaken up on the back end, especially from the safeties and the corners on those deep and intermediate passes. So I think Ryan Tannehill is really going to be able to exploit that by going after guys like Julio Jones and A.J. Brown. It's just about time A.J. Brown steps into his own. People use second or third round draft picks on this guy. And once he gets there, man, this guy can catch a ball and go the distance in a hurry. I definitely am not hopeful for Tannehill to blow up on my favorite football team in the Colts, but it's just a good matchup, honestly. And we've seen now Matt Stafford and Russell Wilson both have very good games against the Indianapolis Colts. And yeah, I think they're probably better quarterbacks than Ryan Tannehill, but Ryan Tannehill is no joke. He was one of John and I's favorite quarterbacks coming into the year. I just think this Titans team is taking a little bit longer to understand their identity to go forward. So I think Ryan Tannehill is definitely a guy you can plug into your lineups, sneaky start if you need a quarterback in a pinch. Another guy here who has played better than him this season, but just less of a sexy pick, Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater has been amazing this season, ranking number 11 on the year inside that top 12. When we knew he was taking over that Broncos offense over Drew Lock, we knew this offense was going to be better, right? We knew that there was going to be more opportunities for these players to reach their peaks, right? And Teddy Bridgewater is the engine that runs this offense. He can do it on the ground and he can do it through the air. 300 passing yards in week 2 shows me that Teddy Bridgewater is taking that step and understanding that it is time to start moving the ball down the field, start pressing it, start pushing it a little bit farther than he used to. He used to be such a dink and dunk type of game manager. And I think he's finally getting the coaching to say, dude, just let it ride, bro. Throw it deep to these guys like Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant, and just let these athletes make plays. And guess he's going up against the Jets, guys. The fucking Jets. I don't care if their defense is looking decent or not. It's the damn Jets. I think the Jets are going to be in a situation where they're behind too. So I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to get a good chance to just light up this defense here. And I see another 20-plus point type of game, 2 touchdowns each week. It's been very consistent. But one thing where I see some positive regression potentially is the rushing side, right? Only 19 yards week 1, 1 yard week 2. We know he can do more than that, especially around the red zone too, running the ball as well. So he had multiple rushing touchdowns with the Carolina Panthers. So I'm seeing some upside there too, whether it comes in week 3 or onwards. I definitely think Teddy Bridgewater is a great start this week and a great start rest of the season as well so far. A couple other guys to wrap up this video. Jared Goff with the Detroit Lions. We really need to start actually looking at him as a viable option week to week, just like Teddy Bridgewater, just like Daniel Jones. Like these are gross names, guys, but fantasy football isn't necessarily like real football sometimes. Maybe it's best to start a guy like Daniel Jones or Jared Goff. I mean, he's ranked 9th in all of fantasy football right now, top 12, top 10. He had 28 points week 1 against the 49ers. Just lit him the fuck up. And week 2, he only had 18 points, but he had to throw up a pass at the end of the game just to kind of try to have something happen that got picked off. So that subtracted from his points. He also had a fumble at the end of the game because he's trying to make a lot happen because he needs to. He needs to have something work for the team because they were so far down. And I think if you were to add those points back in, or if he wasn't forced to do them, he's going to be closer to the week 1 total of 28. And that's good, right? That I mean, 20 plus is good, and it's something that you can definitely roll with week to week. And I think against this Baltimore defense, I highlighted the Baltimore Ravens defense in my must start defenses for week 3, just because I think there's going to inevitably be some turnover opportunity here, whether it be from Jared Goff or someone else on this Lions team. I still think this Ravens defense is got some holes in it. And there's going to be tons of opportunities for Jared Goff to get from that 250 to 300 yards passing range. And he's going to get the opportunity to throw touchdowns, man. He's done it every single week so far, and they like to gunsling it, man. I mean, how many passes he had? 36 passes this last week. And it's been very consistent too. They look to pass before run it, even if they have to dump it off to one of their stud tailbacks in Jamal Williams or DeAndre Swift. And that's why I like Jared Goff in fantasy football week to week, especially this week against the Ravens. And my last must start quarterback on the week that I wanted to highlight, Matt Stafford at Tampa Bay. So you're saying Tampa Bay, come on, man. You would start a quarterback against Tampa Bay? Yeah, I'd start a quarterback against Tampa Bay. And if you watch the video on the must start wide receivers, you would understand why. This Tampa Bay defense is not the same defense of old. They can shut down any run game with sound effectiveness, just like some of the best defenses of all time. But their passing defense is sus right now. They got burned by the Falcons and they got burned by the Cowboys. And the Rams are better than, in my opinion, than both of those offenses passing it. And I see Matt Stafford coming in here and looking hot and them relying on the passing game to win it, especially because the Rams starting running back Darrell Henderson is injured and banged up. Why give more and more touches to this guy and Sony Michel when you can rely on Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Sean Jackson, and the rest of the bunch to win it? I think this is going to be a great game. I think a lot of people have an idea that this might be more defensive, but honestly, I think both defenses have been giving up more yards and better performances to quarterbacks than we're thinking about. I mean, the Rams let Carson Wentz do pretty well against them. And in week 1, I mean, yeah, they shut down Andy Dalton, but Carson Wentz was able to move the ball down the field against them pretty easily. So I think this is a game that could get in the higher scoring. I mean, obviously you've got Tom Brady on the Buccaneers, probably the MVP of the NFL this year, just pushing the ball down. But at Stafford, man, I love this pick here. I love getting a chance to go against this Bucs defense, which just looks a little sus. But that being said, guys, that is my must start quarterbacks. And in these videos too, I try to highlight guys that necessarily aren't going to be those top tier type of players, right? I'm not going to necessarily say like Kyler Murray or Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady because we know that, right? We know those guys are going to be week over week, absolute must starts, right? I'm trying to look at some more diamonds in the rough for some guys that I think have favorable matchups, right? But like I said, guys, really hope you appreciated this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something from it. Leave some comments below. Please, if you also enjoyed it, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, join the Catch fam. We are on the road to 200 subscribers, guys, and we appreciate every single one of those subscribers as well. We pride ourselves on being the most interactive podcast with you guys. We want to talk to you about everything. If you have any questions about fantasy lineup decisions, which quarterback to start, right? Which running back, wide receiver, tight end, let us know. Shoot, you want some input on your kicker, let us know. We'll give you some input as well. And also my co-host John, he's throwing out live stream videos every other day, and you can jump in on there and we can do some live chat questions and answers. That's always helpful too for any sort of fantasy football dialogue, guys. Hope you appreciated it. And remember, you saw it here first at the Catch.